Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh Vrains discussion video. So this Tuesday morning, we got the summary and the cast list for episode 118, and a very small summary for episode 119. If you do not want any spoilers on Vrains, now is your chance to click off the video. 3, 2, 1, let's begin. So before I get into it, there have been, as I'm sure many of you know, a crazy amount of speculation that this show is going to end in September. The time slot switched, or at least it was kicked off of its time slot. We don't know if it's switched. There's a possibility that Vrains will air a different day, but that has not been announced yet. All we know is that a basketball anime is taking over the Yu-Gi-Oh Vrains time slot the first week of October, leading many people to believe that episode 120 might be the final episode of this show. I do want to say this is completely normal. Getting 2 summaries that we did not have before on a Tuesday is normal. I've seen a couple people say, oh, does this mean 119 is the final episode? There's nothing here that confirms Vrains will be ending this month. There's also nothing here that confirms Vrains will keep on going. So I'm going to talk about that a little later on, because we got another tweet from a third staff member that could potentially hint at Vrains ending, and I'm going to dissect that tweet, although that tweet is very vague. Honestly, I've heard so many different arguments from both sides that Vrains will definitely end in 3 weeks, and I've heard good arguments that Vrains will not end in 3 weeks. And again, I will get into that a little later on in the video, but let's start with episode 118. We know that 117, the episode airing tomorrow, is going to be Playmaker vs. I. 118, a reckless proposal. Playmaker barely manages to fend off I's attacks. Having found an opening, Playmaker attempts to launch an attack against I. However, I knows Playmaker inside and out and can predict everything he will do. I then unites the feelings of all the Ignises and brings out the advent of the ultimate Cyberse monster. That is awesome. I imagine it's going to be a Link. I mean, I would have guessed a Link 6 because there's 6 Ignises, but I'm really hoping that somehow it's a Link 8. I think a Link 8 monster if this is going to be the final duel, to end the show would be so cool to watch. We have a cast list that is probably, I actually want to say that is definitely the shortest cast list in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains. Yusaku, I, Kusanagi, and extras. I was really hoping that maybe the other Ignis would speak, especially when I first read the summary, because I is going to be at least uniting the feelings of all the Ignises, so I thought it would be cool if we got kind of similar to what happened in 116, where Flame's spirit came and talked to Soulburner. Unfortunately, at least in this episode, it doesn't look like that's going to happen, and this feels like a very early Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains episode, right? Where Yusaku and I and Kusanagi were in that hot dog truck many times early on in the show, talking about how to defeat the Knights of Hanoi, the next step in the plan, all of that good stuff, and it's basically like the original trio almost, and that is the only people speaking in this episode. I think that's really cool. 119, a broken ego. Having learned about I's sorrow, Playmaker tries to convince him to stop the battle. However, I has already made up his mind and won't back down no matter what. I then makes a proposal to Playmaker. So we should be getting the full batch of summaries for the month September 6th on Friday morning. That will probably be a major indicator if this show is going to end after episode 120, because if they're taking a week off, they usually write that when the spoilers come out, so maybe they are taking the first week of October off. If it's the final episode, I believe they'll also state that in the summaries. I'm not 100% sure about that, because Arc 5 was, Arc 5 and Zexal and 5, they followed the precedent of going until March, so September 6th, we should know a lot more as to whether this show is going to end on the 25th or not. But a proposal to Playmaker, that is really interesting. And I think it's also interesting, going back to 118, that if this is going to be the final duel, Playmaker versus I, if this is going to be the final duel of the show, it makes sense that we are going to see the ultimate Cyberse monster. In fact, that phrasing kind of parallels the aspect of the show concluding very soon. Because whenever a Yu-Gi-Oh! Show concludes, we usually see an incredible boss monster. I'm thinking of Zark in Arc 5. I'm thinking of Don Thousand's Chaos Imaginary number 1000, Numeronius Numeronia. I'm thinking of Cephalon, the Ultimate Time Lord. With GX, it was, well, the GX, I guess there wasn't any specific one, but, you know, Darkness was kind of nuts. His whole deck was kind of insane. But anyway, or God Neos was really cool. There's always a really awesome boss monster, and if I is going to be summoning the ultimate Cyburst, which Cyburst has been a theme of this show since the very beginning. The Cyburst deck, the Cyburst cards, the Cyburst in general, and now we are going to see potentially an earth-shattering monster that is a Cyburst monster. I think that's going to be so cool to watch. And will it have 100,000 base attack and defense? Well, maybe. We'll have to wait and see. This duel is at least going to go into 119. It wouldn't surprise me if it goes 4 episodes. That's how long the Playmaker-Bowman duel went. Again, it's hard for me to analyze these. I'm actually having probably the most difficult time ever in terms of analyzing, because I don't know if I should be analyzing these assuming the show is going to end in literally 3 weeks, like right after these episodes, or assuming the show is going to go another 15, 20, 25 episodes. The fact that we have not had any confirmation on it makes it very tough to analyze these from a literary sense if we are going to end the show or if we're not going to end the show soon. I do love the whole aspect of I knowing what Playmaker is going to do. That's touched on in 118. I think when I was first revealed to us as being the villain and this human that's kind of, or this human form that's kind of gone against humans and in a way betrayed Playmaker, a lot of us thought that when this duel was happening or was going to happen in the future, I would have a really good chance of winning. And I still think that I does have a decent chance of winning unless this show is ending immediately after this duel, because if that happens, there's no way I wins. If this show had another 20, 25 episodes, if there was no speculation that this show was going to end, I would probably be on the bus that says, yeah, you know what, I is going to win this duel, and Playmaker's going to lose, and that will be the whole finale of this show, Playmaker and his team having to go and retake Earth, basically, and defeat the Ignis, but it just doesn't seem like that's the route they're going to go, especially because most of Team Playmaker is gone. Another interesting thing here is there's no Soulburn or Revolver speaking in 118. I think they're going to speak in 117, probably at the beginning, to just kind of see off Playmaker, and then that will be that. I think Revolver and Soulburner, honestly, Revolver and Soulburner's duel felt very similar to like a ceremonial duel for me, which was, I don't know if anyone else got that vibe, but I thought that was kind of interesting, and I might touch on that. We will be doing a Talking Yu-Gi-Oh podcast probably tonight, so I'll touch on that more in my opening monologue. The only thing that I can think about in terms of proposal, now this would be a really interesting proposal. What if I proposes that in order to recreate the Cybursts, he needs human data for whatever reason, and all of the humans that he has killed and turned into data to this point, Ghost Girl, Spectre, Akira Zaizen, all of them, they have to stay permanently dead, and then the Cyburst gets revived, and I says the Ignis will leave humanity alone for the rest of its days. They'll never harm humanity, but if Playmaker doesn't accept, if I wins this duel, then all of humanity is going to be in danger. So it's almost like that old analogy, right? If a train was coming and it was going to hit, it's either 1 or 30 people, would you pull the lever so that the train goes the other way, but it kills one person? I sum that up horribly, but look it up. Look up train psychology scenario or something like that. I did a horrible job explaining it. I'm sure there's a few people that know exactly what I'm talking about, but that would be an interesting proposal. I don't think the proposal is going to have anything to do with them teaming up. I think it's going to have to be something along the lines of, if you do this for me, then we will leave humanity alone, but the cost of what has to be done, I think, is going to be very, very great. But I'm sure we're going to get a better idea of what that might be. It's funny because in 118, the title of 118 is called A Reckless Proposal, and then 119 summary talks about the proposal. So there will be I think that will be a very big factor in this duel, and I think it's just going to be a really, really good duel, guys. And again, on the 6th of this month, we should know a lot more as to 120 summary and whether this show actually is coming to an end this month. I do want to touch really quickly that we did have a third animator come out and tweet that, quote, I might be working on the last duel today, so I'm going all out with the corrections. Now, some people said, oh, well, this means that Vrains is going to go for another 3 months, because usually they work on episodes 3-4 months in advance for anime, and that usually is true unless production is really, really bad and really behind. But he could also just be making touch-ups to this episode, because he even says, I'm going all out with the corrections, I'm going all out with the touch-ups to make it better, and if that's the case, he might already be working on an episode that's 99% complete. and that could very well be episode 119, 120, 121, who really knows? But also his wording is so vague. I might be working on the last duel today. So does that mean he doesn't know if the duel he's working on is the last duel? Does that mean he doesn't know if he's going into work? Not sure, but this is the third staff member of VRAINS that has come out and said something a little apocalyptic in terms of the show ending sooner rather than later. But on the other hand, I've seen some fans over in the Japanese fandom that have access to the TV guides that said that there's no symbol for VRAINS episode 120 that states that it's ending. Apparently, according to them, there's a symbol or maybe a mark that says, oh yeah, this is the final episode of the show. And VRAINS 120 on the TV guide does not have that symbol. So that makes me think, okay, maybe the show's not going to end. I really don't know, guys. Personally, with all the wording that this is the first and final battle, and now that we're getting the Ultimate Cyberse monster, I think the show is going to end probably this month. I hope I'm wrong, because I would love this show to get as fleshed out as possible. But we will see. Again, sorry for kind of the lackluster analysis for these summaries. It's just hard to analyze them, and I hope to start a conversation with you about what you think is going to happen in these episodes. And again, we should get a much better idea of things on September 6th. But guys, I am really pumped. And the thing with VRAINS, if this is the final duel, the third to last duel was Soulburner Robopi, which had one of my favorite death scenes in a long time. Really good duel. Then we had Soulburner Revolver, which most of the community feels is a very, very amazing episode. In fact, I think on Nico Nico it got 82%. So 8.2 people thought that the episode was phenomenal, which for Nico Nico late in Yu-Gi-Oh shows is very rare. Arc 5, for example, during this time period was getting 1.8%, which was completely trolling and not really accurate, but still. So a lot of people can agree that Soulburner Revolver was incredible. If Playmaker and I is really good, then the show ended on 3 really good duels. And that's almost all you can ask for. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Leave all your thoughts down below. And a special thank you to my Platinum tier patrons, Alexa Baker, Glen McGookin, Jorge Carrillo, James Rose, Samuel Stark, Thomas Adderley, Horace Maye, Goosey Q, Vincent Van Der Veen, Jordan Osceola, Smith620, RedEye, FrostReaper, Jorge Leon, Melinda Phantom, and Blue Maiden 28. And to my Diamond tier patrons, Jesse Wood, Garrett Palmer, Galladiator, and Ben Hartz. And to my Egyptian God tier patrons, Syn Cloud, Chris Swan, Matthew Kennedy ×2, and Joss Rivers. Thank you to everyone who is a patron and a YouTube channel member. Cannot tell you how much it helps me out. Dark Signers video coming out soon. Be on the lookout for that. I will talk to you all down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.
Cannot count that.